Zero Foxtrot does not profess to share or promote the opinions and beliefs expressed by show host or guests. The Stay Zero podcast was created to provide a platform for servicemen and women to share their stories. Due to the nature of this podcast, sensitive topics will arise. Conversations about combat, PTSD, drug use, and other such subjects will occur. Viewer discretion is advised.
Welcome back to the Stay Zero podcast. My name is Zach. My guest today is a good friend that about 18 years ago I got to spend Christmas with in Fallujah. And Mike Skinta, thanks for coming in today, man.
Yeah, man, thanks for having me. It's
It's surreal to get to see you.
As always, man. I think last time we saw each other was at the Baghdad embassy in 16, 17.
Yeah, that's right. You were, oh man, that's right. I forgot that we ran into each other there.
Yeah, man.
What unit were you with then?
3-7, no shit.
Yeah.
I have to say that.
Yeah. Oh man. The embassy, was that when we were dealing with all that stuff in the green zone? They were trying to overrun the green zone and they brought you guys in?
I think there was a perceived threat that possibly that would happen. Yeah, so they brought the Marines in for anti-armor capabilities mainly, but
they got in there one week. I remember it especially. They were right outside the walls. We could hear them chanting, and they stormed their parliament and drug out their politicians and beat the shit out of them in the streets.
I wish I could have seen that.
Me too. Like I was rooting them on. Get them.
Yeah.
Oh, cool, man.
Yeah.
Awesome. Let's jump into a little bit about your Marine Corps career. When did you join?
So I joined August 1st, 1995. So a couple days ago would have been my 28-year anniversary of standing on the yellow footprints.
Yeah. So that was before 9/11 then.
Yeah, I joined before 9/11. I guess wasn't much going on. I think, little Bosnia stuff or whatever. Some little stuff, but yeah, that was about it.
What was your MOS at the time?
So I came in as an 0311 basic rifleman.
Yeah, me too.
It was too short to do the other MOSs.
And you found your way to the sniper platoon?
I did. So, I had a kind of a rough patch when I first started. I was a corporal a couple times.
Okay.
So I had to wait a little longer than most, but yeah, I went over to snipers at my 3-year mark, and then did that until I crossed over and went to the dark side.
Yeah? What was the dark side?
I became a gunner, so infantry weapons officer.
That's right. And then we met in Fallujah 2005 on a joint mission.
That's right.
What unit were you with then?
I was with 2-2.
I thought that was right.
Yeah, you guys were, it was busy down where y'all were, so
it was.
I think they sent a company and my sniper team.
Yeah.
And, I think we met on Christmas Eve and planned our mission, and then had a great time all through Christmas.
Man, I was actually telling my wife about that story, and I'm going to be vague and not use names, but it's so funny. Do you remember the sergeant major attaching himself to my team?
I do. What I remember is that he wouldn't let you guys take any cold weather gear.
Yes.
And I think it was halfway through the first night that he was trying to commandeer some sleeping bags from my guys because we brought them.
Dude, it was such a shit show. I remember stepping into camp and getting ready for that mission. I was excited, right? Because I felt honored to be selected for it. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? And it was like, here's this unit's A team, here's us, like we're gonna get this shit done, and he told me that he was gonna go out with us, and I was just, okay, like I'm a lance corporal, and here's our battalion sergeant major, but I knew he was a sniper in Desert Storm, and so I'm like, all right, like this guy, he's an operator, let's do this, it'll be okay. And I remember he kind of gave me a pep talk, and he's like, this is your show, devil. I'm just a fly on the wall to support. You let me know whatever I can do. I was like, perfect. Like I couldn't imagine a better attitude to come into that with. And then I started my pre-mission brief, and all that shit went out the window. And and like he said, it was December, and he's like, and I told the guys, wear your fleeces, bring your sleeping bag. It is gonna be cold. We are right off the Euphrates River. And he totally trumped that. He's like, no, we don't wear that. We don't do that. You got to strip everything off. You guys start to sweat, and then they get cold to get hypothermia. And I think it was like maybe a mile insert from where they were dropping us off. I'm like, man, we ain't gonna sweat in a mile walking we just had to get through a grove, But he wasn't having it.
I remember.
And so I told my guys, I was like, okay, bring your sleeping bags. He's like, no, we don't take sleeping bags. You can have a Ranger roll if you decide to, which, poncho and poncho liner.
Yep.
And my heart's just dropping every time he opens his mouth, and we get out there, and, they do the insert, and we start to kind of take off throat protectors and eye pro and helmets and, get comfortable in the hide site. And again, no, guys, we're 100%, because I told him like 50-50, you two go down. It was like probably midnight. We'll stay up. We'll do every 2 hours. He's like, nope, 100% all night. Like, this is a 4-day op, man. We're going to be 100% for 4 days.
Yep.
And the team's looking at me, and I'm like, I'm E3. What am I going to say in this situation? And I had gone back to the fob and rat fucked like 3 cases of MREs and stole all the heaters out of them, shoved them into my ruck, and we went out, and about, midnight, 2:00, something like that. Oh, there's another one. He gave us a bunch of shit for not having flashlights on our rifles. I don't know if you remember this.
Not only do I remember that, I remember that y'all's battalion had a SOP to identify each other at night, where you would open up your flak jackets with like an IR chem light. And, our unit, we already had the, like what I would call modern scalable plate carrier that they'd got us. And I was like, well, we can't do that. And he was like, well, you got to figure it out. And I was like, so bro, let me get this right. You want me to open up, like remove my armor, expose my vital organs 3 times so you can see me? I was like, I'm going to pass, dude. That was an interesting go.
Yeah, man. It only gets better. I don't know if you know the whole story here.
Well, no, because we weren't with you guys, and that I felt bad for y'all because I showed up, and I don't know if you remember, but I was a staff sergeant as a team leader, which was kind of weird back then. You didn't see a lot of us.
Yeah, that was a high rank for a team leader.
And I was just like, well, I'm not doing that, or I'll go back home.
Yeah.
And
yeah. I remember envying that power that you had. I had no home to go to. That was my situation.
You were home, unfortunately, man. It was like having the parents that rode the short bus. But we felt for you guys, man. He was interesting.
It was tough, and we did that 3-2-1, right? We did that signaling, and he's like, "Why don't y'all have flashlights on your rifles?" I'm like, We're green side. We're not searching houses. We're like, I don't want a flashlight on my gun. It's like, well, I guess I'm the only one that's going to be killing bodies at night. I was like, you see them at night, they're all yours, man. Yeah. They knew we owned the night. Nobody was moving. And it must have been around middle of the night. I think he got up to do some squats or something to kind of warm up, and he knocks his rifle off over that's leaning against the tree. And guess what kicks on? Bat signal, boom, surefire, into the sky, waving around the trees, and he's trying to get it turned off. And I'm like, oh my God. And my bad, devil. I was like, no problem, man. I think I got up every couple of hours to like give a guy an MRE heater because they had to stay awake. And, we're all probably, spread out a little bit. And just to stimulate their mind, talk to them a little bit, give them something to warm up. And I come back around, and I had taken 2 poncho liners and tied them into my poncho to double my Ranger rolls. I knew it was frost on the ground in the morning, if you remember.
Well, I not only remember that, but I remember my team leader waking me up, and he goes, Mick, you got to see this. Like, during my watch, the river started freezing. You remember that like closest to the bank?
Yeah.
And I was like, you've got to be shitting me, man. we're in Iraq, man.
Yeah.
It's
You
freezing.
don't think that it would get
Yeah.
that way, like to see snow or
Yeah.
things like that. But I made the rounds and I come back, and he didn't bring a Ranger roll. That was soft, I guess. So he was curled up in mine. And I come over there and I'm like, hey man, I think you grab my Ranger roll. He's like, you don't mind sharing, do you, devil? It's fucking cold out here. And I was like, that's why we bring sleeping bags.
Yeah.
And, long story short, that we finished that night. And the next day we had to move.
Yeah, we did.
We moved to another area. I think it was further south, closer toward Al-Assad. And I remember because wherever we got to, it was some defilade in between some berms. He kind of crawled off and took his helmet off. His
discipline broke faster.
Didn't make it
that
24 hours.
12-year-olds, yeah.
Didn't make it 24 hours with his own rules. And I can only imagine how many Marines they NJP'd for doing exactly that. But he crawled off and he stripped everything off and went to sleep. Didn't say a word. And so the team's looking at me like, hey, man, you going to say something? Because we're all tired. Okay, so I crawl over. I'm like, hey, Sergeant Major, 100%, right? He's like, nah, fuck that, devil. If you're not on watch, you can go to sleep now. I was like, okay. You going to put your kit on? He's like, nah, if you're not on watch, you don't need your kit. I'm like, okay. This would have been good the first night.
Yeah.
But I guess maybe he just kind of realized, I don't know, because they don't go out. They don't operate. Like, their roles are not the missions. And so I don't know what he envisioned in his head, but I imagine he got out there and it was nothing like he was thinking it was going to be. And he slept till about noon. And then we could hear on the radio there was a convoy coming from Al-Assad to Camp Fallujah. And he crawls over, he gets on the radio, finds out who that is, has them stop on the road near our position, tells us, you got this, guys. I'll see y'all later. Stands up from our hide site and walks to the road and gets on the random convoy and leaves.
I remember that.
And I'm like, okay. Well, shit, this just got better, right? I'm like, all right, I can deal with that. Later, man. Thanks for playing. And I get back to the fob, and the CO sees us all come off the truck, and he's looking behind us, and he's like, where's the Sergeant Major? And I look at him like, he's not with you? They're like, what?
Yeah.
The next 2 hours was tracking his ass down at Camp Fallujah, and I guess he had gone back and gone to bed. Yep. I don't know, man. It was, what a mess.
It was.
What was that op like for you guys? Do you remember it?
Well, yeah,
Obviously
it was a lot better than what it was for you. For us, I think it was good for my guys. I think we had I've always told everybody I was really lucky with commands, right?
Mm.
And I probably had one of the best battalion commanders I'd ever seen or heard about, Giles Kaiser.
Nice.
And his father. What was unique about him is his father was a master gunnery sergeant, so he had this deep respect for NCOs and staff NCOs. And so when we were like, hey boss, this is how we're going to do it, he would go, all right, and that was it.
Nice.
And
that's what you want.
Yeah, but at first you're always waiting for we're taught in school, like you're going to pitch your mission, and some guy who got a communications degree from Minnesota, Duluth, and Alabama, is going to tell you no because he's, like a mini version of Rommel, even though the only difference between him and you truly is he partied for 4 years at college and then got a little bit more formal education, if you will, military-wise. And so it was really refreshing that, within our command, you were a trusted agent. And when when they presented the problem and you said, this is how we're going to do it, they would just say, go. And, kind of like going to you guys, hey, Sergeant Skinta or Staff Sergeant Skinta, what are you going to do when you get down there? And I was like, I don't know, sir. We only kind of have the rough, draft of what we're going to do, but we'll figure it out and we'll do it right. And I think for us, I remember we were sitting around. I smoked my first cigar in life with you.
Yeah.
Arturo Fuente. I didn't.
You have a
I'd
good
never
memory.
heard. Yeah, I'd never heard of him. And
Yeah.
you guys were all into that. You were kind of like sophisticated dudes, right? We were. You were West Coast dudes. You were a little more refined. You had like table manners. We were all a bunch of like rednecks from the East Coast who, didn't shower much and talked funny and had
That's
never
funny.
smoked cigars. I think some of my guys had probably smoked them with other stuff in it prior to the Corps, but it was just fascinating to see. It was our first time really working with a West Coast unit,
Yeah.
and we expected you guys to be way more chill, and it was literally like going to a state prison, I would imagine, when we showed up. It was very controlling, very micromanaged. So for us, it was kind of like 2-2 appreciation week, right?
Yeah.
I think we were there, a total of 10 days because we did that op in the house on the intersection, which was good because I think you guys weren't allowed to occupy buildings up until then. And then when they saw what you could do from a position where you could dominate, from
We
what
had
I
a lot
remember
of
hearing from you
challenges.
guys, it kind of helped y'all out. So
Absolutely.
I think it was, anytime you can see how anyone else does the same thing, you learn something, right? And like I tell everyone you meet, you're going to learn something. It might be what not to do or what not to be, but you're going to learn something. And I will say with y'all, not your team. I mean, you guys, we're all the same, right? Just a bunch of young Americans that want to do God's work, for our people. But we definitely realized, like, holy shit, there are some wrong ways to probably do this. And I remember I think your line platoons had taken a decent bit of casualties. That's why we kind of came down there to help y'all out. And it was when we got back, it was like, well, what do you think's going on down there? And it was like, man, these guys are handcuffed. They're not really able to perform their duties in the way they want to, and they definitely can. And that leads kind of into another thing. Like I always tell everybody, I don't think there's any bad units. I think there are. There are definitely bad individual Marines, but I think when you hear about a bad sniper team or a bad reconnaissance team or a bad platoon, it's probably more than likely the effect of a bad command structure, right? And,
Yeah.
we were just, extremely blessed to have Colonel Kaiser, and I've kind of just always been lucky like that, I guess, through my whole time. I tell everybody I'm probably the only dude that will never say like fuck that guy about one of my former bosses, right? I've just kind of always been a little lucky with that.
Yeah, that's great to hear. And you're right. I had the opposite experience.
Oh, I know, bro. I mean, we loved kicking it with you guys. It was great, but we were like, man, we need to get the F out of here.
Yeah, take us with you.
Yeah, I wish I could have, man. I got on my truck as fast as I could.
Oh man. So what was your career like after that? Because we parted ways for 10 years. What else did you do?
So we did that deployment. I came home for about 6 months and went back out again, did another deployment in pretty much the same areas, Zidane, Fallujah, Mahmadiyah, all that. Rinse and repeat.
I went right back in 2007.
Yeah, honestly, people have always been like, man, wasn't that hard? And it's like, no, man, like, you don't go out for the football team to like
not play football.
You want to go hit some shit, right? And
yeah.
It was great, as far as job satisfaction. I think, there's nothing like the ultimate test, right? And that's what combat is. It's you could be the honor grad of a school or get as many schools as you want, but until you go and show you can do it and do it at a level that's acceptable. I don't know if it even matters if it's acceptable to you, but acceptable by your peers, right? The men that you respect, because I think that's usually the gauge we all use. Man, there's nothing better, right?
Yeah.
I'll be honest. If I could have just stayed a sergeant in a sniper platoon for 20 years and there was a war, I would probably just do that. To the detriment of everything else that we know it affects, but
it's the best spot to be.
It's fucking awesome,
You've
man.
got
I
the
mean,
rank to be taken seriously, but you don't have the responsibility of logistics or managing, a whole
you can
platoon.
always just say, "Oh, I don't know that yet."
Totally. It's like
And you're not
my
expected
job
to.
is the mission.
Yeah, to be
and I carry that out.
tactically and technically proficient, and yeah. So I finished up there, and I took orders and went out to Scout Sniper School, Hawaii. I was the staff and COIC out there for 3 years on the dot. I was not a fan of the Hawaiian Marine Corps.
Really?
I jokingly call it the Coconut Corps, but
Why is that?
it's a different mindset out there. And when you're at sniper school, the lights are on at 5. They go out when you're done, right? It's an event-driven job, and trying to run such a demanding course, and in Hawaii, it's even more logistically demanding, right?
The ranges and stuff.
When Motor T doesn't open up till 8 and everybody on base takes Aloha Friday, so they're off at noon. At the time, they really didn't train much because you can't do much out there unless they went somewhere else. And that's not, I'm not saying there aren't great Marines in Hawaii. I just think holistically, the attitude is just not acceptable. It didn't jive with me, right? Like, I'm out there trying to train young men how to go fight, kill, and survive, right? I mean, I had a class from 3-7, no shit. Those guys didn't even get to do their final exercise. So it was like they literally got to that point, and we gave them their hog's tooth and their cert. And it was like, if you get killed, I'm going to your funeral and taking that bitch back, right? Because you failed your FEX. But I mean, they literally like left school. So I mean, for us, it was a very serious job in just, I think, a wrong place to be at the time. I mean, a lot of people will disagree with me, but when that school shut down, I like took like a sigh of relief, like, thank God,
Really?
because I just think there's too many distractions, and again, that, Hawaii is a great place to visit. Love the culture. I don't think it's conducive to military lifestyles, according to me.
Yeah, man. No, I could see that. It's like going to Disneyland and trying to work remote.
Yeah.
Like, how the hell are you going to stay focused on your job when you have all of this?
The bars stay open until 5,
Totally.
And a Marine, no matter what's happening the next day, if there is a place to buy alcohol, he will be there buying that alcohol, right? And
wake up and run and sweat out that
show
whiskey.
up and get it going, right? But I left Hawaii. I went to 1-2, went to the sniper platoon there, and then about a month before deployment, we had a company gunny quit, and so I got the prestigious honor of being the H&S company gunnery sergeant while on that deployment to Afghanistan.
That was a change.
Yeah, well, there's nothing like building a platoon. When I got there, I think they had 2 snipers. By the time we deployed, we had like 14. Right?
Oh, wow.
And a great group of guys. But I definitely realized at that point, like, okay, I don't want to be a first sergeant. I don't even know if I want to be a master sergeant. I'd never been outside of a platoon level before, and I'm a gunny. I was like, maybe this isn't for me, So my ex-wife, I've got to give her some props, right? She was like, well, look, dude, you're not throwing away 14 years. So how about you put in for this gunner program? And I'm like, well, at the time it was like 16 years, and I had never done anything but really be a sniper. So I'm like, well, I'm not going to get it, right? So I'll entertain her, put it in, and maybe go contract somewhere, right? The big dream we all have.
Yeah.
And, God really loves to fuck me over sometimes, and I get accepted, right? And I'm on terminal block leave. We just got back from deployment. I've got my daughters. We're at the park. I'm pushing them on the swings. They're 3 and 1, and and all of a sudden my phone starts blowing up, and it's like, congrats, dude, you got it. And inside I'm like, fuck. I thought I was getting out.
Yeah.
I keep trying to leave, and you keep pulling me back in.
Yeah, the lobster pot.
Yeah, right. So, from there, went to TBS, and then the warrant officer version. learn how to eat with like a fork and knife and wear your uniform and not trust enlisted people, even though you were just one like the other day, right?
Yeah.
And then from there, I went to 4th Reconnaissance Battalion. I was their gunner for 5 years.
What was that like, stepping into their community?
You know, so one, I didn't understand the reserves even, right? So I'm like an active guy in reserves, but it was 4th Recon. So I'm like, oh, even numbers to the right. I thought all reservists went to like Camp Pendleton or Lejeune.
Okay.
I didn't know like they had bases all around the United States, right? Because I mean, how many times did you work with a reservist? Like 0.
Yeah, no.
And then they're like, well, you got orders in San Antonio, Texas. And I'm like, there's not even fucking water there. Like, what's a recon unit doing there, you know, right?
Yeah.
But I'll tell you, it was when I look back as far as like enjoyable times in the Marine Corps, I would say that was one of my most enjoyable times. I had 2 of the most dynamic leaders I'd ever worked with, and in like forward thinking, completely trusting, empowered their men from the lowest level and up. And they were Bruce Sotier and Eric Dill, just great men, right? I mean, and I'm still friends to them to this day. Well, you know, because one, they didn't fire me, right? So I've got to keep paying up for that. But you know, I got to go to Mexico and support the mission down there. Train the Mexican Marine Commandos.
Yeah, what was the mission there?
So we were training Mexican Marine Commandos for the war on drugs. So precision marksmanship, small boats, square bay house techniques, all that. And
this sounds like almost the Army SF mission.
yeah, I mean, there were some folks like that down there. It was a really kind of cool mission that these guys fell in on. And, you know, I kind of went down there to make sure like the precision fires was going right, help with the ranges, of course.
Yeah.
And make sure we didn't kill anybody, more or less. But, you know, we did that. We had the battalion go do the Black Sea Rotational Force in Europe.
What is that?
So it's a theater support cooperation, right? So it's more or less, you know, your Black Sea nation. So at the time, Lithuania, Estonia, you know, Georgia, all these places. Okay. So I got to kind of fly around and build ranges everywhere. And we had guys in Jordan. We had a platoon in Afghanistan. So even though it was the reserves, it's probably the busiest I could have been. I think out of my 5 years there, I averaged about 7.5 months on the road, right? Which was brutal on the family. Again, I think we get that super hyper focus on mission, right? And if the mission's fun and it's good, you know, you have that mission and purpose, man. It's unfortunately, you know, you see your kids on the exterior or your wife and your parents and your friends, and then all of a sudden you just start seeing blurs of their faces. Mm-hmm. And I know you've been there, man. And then it's just like lights, right? And you're just like focused on what you're doing. But it was a hell of a ride, right? I mean, it was really rewarding. Super talented guys. You know, these reservists, man, I got a ton of respect for them, right? Like, you've got guys that are on like FBI HRT, like that's their day job, right?
Wow.
Or MIT, you know, adjunct professors or entrepreneurs who are multimillionaires and they're sergeants because they just want to enlist and go get shit, right? And they're just a fascinating group of Americans, you know. I mean, you and I got paid all the time. We got fed if we ran out of money. Man, these reservists, a lot of times I've seen kids do it and not get paid for 6 months because it's just, we act like it's the first time every time, right? But I think their level of patriotism is really, you know, one, it's genuine and it's unbelievable when you compare it. I think they have a much more like romantic form of service than we were just like, you know, kill shit, break shit, you know, yeah. I think to them it's more of a purpose-filled kind of thing because they can quit anytime they want. You know?
Yeah, man, that's a great perspective I have never thought about because.
Well, I was paid to say that before I came by one of the reserve commanders, Alan Jaster. Yeah,
recruitment's down. We're gonna need to.
yeah. And just in case you're looking for college money, please go see your recruiter about the Marine Reserve.
I mean, shamefully, I remember my perspective where these guys are weekend warriors. Like that's the name that they're given. And that was a little bit of how we perceived them. Like, they're not in this the way that we are.
Yeah.
But in the way that you've described it, they're in it for a more pure reason. It isn't chasing a career so much as it is like, I have this life, but I'm going to almost volunteer this time.
Yeah.
Because it isn't.
And I'll tell you, the staff and COs and above, they're planning out that next thing while they're doing their real day job, right?
Right.
And
I'm glad you shared that, man.
And another unique thing is, most of the reconnaissance Marines, they're actually prior service. They don't. It's very hard to make like a true reserve baby reconnaissance Marine. So it was unique, and I left there. I went 3-7, no shit, and I got to this battalion. We're doing the special purpose MAGTF over in the Middle East. So I got to link back up with you again. And, we had guys in Jordan, northern Iraq, up, doing stuff up there, Al-Assad, TQ. We had the first guys to go into Syria from the conventional forces, right? Our snipers did some great work. I got to give a shout out to my man Tryon. I mean, he schwacked some serious, tangos out there. And it was awesome. But, again, I go back to that reserve billet I did. My companies were in New Mexico, Georgia, Texas. I had guys all over the world. So when I went to do this MAGTF, it was kind of like, for me, it was like slow motion, right? Like, I'm like, oh, well, everybody's under the same roof at 29 Palms, right? We all go to the same ranges. And then when we got overseas, it was kind of like running a reserve battalion. So, I was kind of chilling, just in chill mode. And, it was great, and I did my time with 3-7. I had to kind of pay the tax. Gunners got to go be range officers and stuff like that. And so I became a range I went to the range at 29 Palms. And
now you know why we were so fucked up. That was where we were from. That
I love 29 Palms. When I was at 3-7, again, great experience. I had an awesome boss, Andy Nelson. The whole command climate was amazing. One of the company commanders, I'd served with him when he was a second lieutenant, and I was a gunny, and now I'm a gunner. It was just really cool, cool dynamic. One of the best officers I've ever met in my life, Nick Morales, was there. Jimmy Covey was our OPSO. I mean, just an absolute hammer of a man, right? I mean, he just like, his mere existence is violence, right? This guy's just fucking awesome, right? Like deadlifting in silkies barefoot, right? Outside. I mean, the guy's just, man, it was great, and the guys won Super Squad and, all that kind of stuff. And it was just a kind of a great way to finish my battalion gunner time. And then it's like, hey, dude, you just won the grand prize. You're going to be the range officer at 29 Palms. And to be honest, at first I was like, I would rather suck razor blades for a week than go do this job. But you always find your way to do what you want. So I didn't care about the rifle range. It was going to happen. That's like robot shit.
Yep.
I had guys who cared about the rifle range, so they did that. And then I was like, well, I'm going to do what I want to do, right? So I started getting into competitive shooting.
Within the Marine Corps?
Within the Marine Corps, yeah. Okay. Like the action, because they have an action shooting competition, right?
I'm not familiar with
that. So it's, 2-gun, pistol, and rifle at the division level. And then if you go to the Marine Corps matches, it's like 3-gun, shotgun, tricked out, race guns.
Like USPSA type of?
Yeah.
Wow, that's
running around, running and gunning. So, I was really fortunate. I had 3 amazing teams, and we won the team championship 3 out of 4 years, right? So, like, I'd never done it, and all of a sudden I got like all this gold weirdo shit, and you look like a fraud in your uniform. And I was able to pick up a couple individual medals and awards as well. And it was cool to get to push myself especially at that age, right? I'm already, in the Marine Corps, I'm 40. That's like, you're dead. Like, younger guys look at you and they're like, how the fuck are you even breathing?
Yeah. When's this guy getting out?
Yeah. When's he getting out, or when's he like dying? Right?
He still runs a PFT.
Yeah. Better than them. But, it was cool to kind of get into, that side of it, right? And even as a sniper, I was a pretty good shot. I think better than a lot, but I was always intrigued by the mission planning and that kind of stuff, right? Mm-hmm. Like, that's what I really got off on. So to kind of get the focus on that and do it, it was amazing. And I'll tell you, the first time I shot, and everybody was like, "Oh man, here's this gunner. He was a sniper." And I think I finished like 180th out of like 200 people. Right? I mean, first rifle match, and
competition's different.
Yeah, but it was great. It was humbling, and it was like, well, I got to unfuck myself. So it got me to get back out on the gun, really work, and put myself in some uncomfortable situations besides like in a sleeping bag with another man. Right? So it was really fun. Right? So did that. I got selected to CW04, and I got my first pick, which was the School of Infantry, and I kind of wanted to get back to where it all started, and just an amazing team there. Probably met the most incredible Marine officer enlisted I've ever met. Master Guns Corey Pascovan, just a hammer, right? Like he won 2 recon challenges in a row over the age of 40, right?
Wow.
Sniper. I mean, there's nothing this guy couldn't do, but we kind of got to usher in this new infantry Marine course. We just had an amazing team. My bro AJ Pasciuti was the battalion gunner down at ITB, and we got this amazing opportunity to be a part of this thing that kind of took the infantry training for the enlisted guy, modernized it, and actually treated them like they could do more than just
fog and mirror,
chew rocks and fog and mirror, right? I think when we got there, the standard to be an infantryman was like, don't get hit by a car, don't steal anything over $20, don't get caught pissing the bed more than twice, right? Like shit like that.
Yeah.
And then now I look at where we're at, and that's not to take away from the infantrymen of the past, right? Like we just had to learn on our own or from our squad leader, and now we formalize it, and you've got these guys that do land nav individually day and night, right? Like a real land nav.
Wow.
They shoot a very similar course to like what EOTG does. Just empowering those young men and like actually giving them the challenge that they wanted, right? Because I mean, let's be real. Yeah, boot camp, it sucks, right? But was it hard?
I left boot camp in worse shape than I went in.
100%, right? SOI, I mean, when I went through, I think I had a corporal who had just got a DUI, so they had to put him there, and he had to walk everywhere. And the only thing I remember out of the School of Infantry was they taught us how to smoke a cigarette in a magazine, so you couldn't see the cherry, and that's it. And like, if that's all I remember, it was like, wouldn't it be cool to, actually give these guys a challenge? And what we saw, instead of like the attrition rate going up or any of this, it actually went down.
Mm-hmm.
Because as well as I do, like you join the Marine Corps to get hit by a Mack truck, right?
Yep.
And when you don't,
you're disappointed.
It's kind of disappointing, right? And so now I think what the challenge will be to the Marine Corps is to keep that momentum going as these guys get out to the fleet and continue their careers. So it was a great way to end it, at the end there, I had some wonky stuff going on, right? Like I was in a motorcycle accident on the I-5, which, I mean, the speed limit on the 5 is pretty high, and, was pretty jacked up, and I could have probably stayed, but it was like, man, where am I going to go? Like, be a CW5 somewhere, and you don't see that many Marines anymore. You're doing like stuff that just didn't look fun. And
yeah, I
mean, I don't know if I would have got it, but it just didn't look fun to me, and it didn't rhyme with Texas wherever I was going to go. So, my wife, who was also a Marine, she was going to get out in November. So we were just like, fuck it, let's call it, go back to Texas, and we'll see if I can find a job somewhere. And, I was very fortunate that I had a job before I was even on, right when I got on terminal leave, I had a job.
That's the best way to do it, man.
Yeah. I was pretty lucky with it. So that's it. That's 27 years in a nutshell, man.
That's awesome.
A couple NJPs, a couple
what was it Chesty said? Like, if a Marine doesn't have an NJP, there's a quote there. Do you know it?
No, I'll be honest with you, man. I'm not a Chesty fan, right? Like I
just remembered there was one.
I'm the anti-hero dude in the Marine Corps, right? Yeah, I mean, I think we celebrate a lot of guys who I think if we actually met him and knew him, we wouldn't be that impressed with him.
I know you've got some opinions on Hathcock.
I do, but
if you want to share them, you don't have to.
Well, I think, he's dead. So it's like, what are you gonna say? Why talk negatively about a dude that's not here, right?
That's a good point.
I think, again, the Marine Corps, we love our heroes, right?
Sure.
We love to sensationalize them. I mean, like we just have lunatic shit we say, right? Like the 7 belt loops on your camis are for the 7 Cs. Well, fucking Army camis have 7 belt loops too, man. No, it's because that's how
so
the
do my Wranglers.
Yeah, so do my Wranglers. Unless you're over a size 38, right? Then you get that special 8 looper.
8th belt.
But we just we just are so into like the kind of fake history, and I'll never doubt that Chesty Puller went to war and everything, but I find it very hard to believe that a colonel was doing anything heroic enough to rate that many Navy crosses. I'm sure his men
absolutely
did, but I think we love our heroes. We love to sensationalize some of these people. Like Jim Mattis. I'll be honest, never a fan, right? Like, and I know
you're not gonna fit me a bit.
I
honestly, I don't know him. We liked the name.
Yeah.
It means warrior, and I was working for him. He was the Secretary of Defense while I was with the agency, or an agency, and my wife picked it, and I was like, hell yeah, let's just do that.
No, it's a great name
for sure.
On a strapping, good-looking young man, right?
Yeah, yeah.
I think it's like
I think there's a need to have someone for the guys to look up to, or a standard to have a history, to have a legacy.
Yeah, definitely, like history, legacy. I think those things are important, but I think if you keep it holistic, right? Because the whole thing is like none of us are special, right?
Sure.
So when we start this like kind of idol worship, I think it becomes very dangerous, right? And so
you've seen The Pacific.
I have.
John Basilone.
Yeah.
I think that represented exactly what you're saying.
Ish, right?
They needed someone to sell war bonds. They needed a hero story to tell, to inspire.
100%. But I think eventually, the man himself, he does it on good intention. But I think it always ends up, this is a business, right? No matter what anybody says, war's a racket, right?
Yeah, man.
One of my
Great
favorites.
book.
It's a business. And so sooner or later, I think there's like a little exploitation.
They probably start to believe their own bullshit.
Yeah, the fish. I mean, come on, man, we're dudes, right? Like, I've never caught a fish that wasn't this big, right? Like, I mean, if I caught a fish, it was this big. If I shot a deer, the rack was this big, right? He was like a 20-pointer A-tip, right?
Yeah.
I've never shot just like a retarded looking spike, which was probably all I ever shot.
Yeah.
In the beginning, but. Yeah, I think it's a little dangerous, right? We get these guys that say these cool things, right? We're a slogan-driven society, right? That's why people love McDonald's and Coke, right? Like they just make badass commercials, right? And I think when you look at guys, and again, General Mattis served his nation for over 30 years. I've got a ton of respect for him. But when he says stuff like, these guys that slap women, it's fun to shoot them. My question is, General, how many men have you shot? And the answer will undoubtedly be fucking 0, man. And you and I have both shot people, right? And that's not to make an arrogant statement. And we might have thought it was fun in a moment, but it's not a fun thing. It's a very serious thing. It's a very spiritual thing. It's a very deep thing. And it's not fun.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, it's not. And you and I both know that, and I think anyone who's ever done it knows that.
Yeah.
So I think those kind of statements are very dangerous, especially when we have someone that's like our bumper sticker dude, right?
Yeah.
But
talk to me about the change that you noticed from 96 to 95.
95. Yeah, don't cheat me years, bro.
Sorry.
I did every single one of those things.
You probably do more.
Trust me.
To the time that you got out within the culture. And then I'd like to go into what the fuck happened with the Battalion Snipers.
Okay.
And why that got, like, there had to have been something of a change there for them to get rid of Battalion Snipers.
So, what did I see change over 27 years? I always loved it because guys are always like, "Oh man, these kids they got to be getting soft, right? They got to be this." I'm gonna tell you, and I'm so thankful I got to finish at the School of Infantry. It's the same kids, man. They're the survivors and grinders from the inner city. They're the hardworking kids from the heartland and in middle class America, and they're the young men and women who maybe had a little more than everyone else but want to serve, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I think like those three types of people are what dominates our military culture, and those same folks are still going, right? Maybe not as many of them, but they're still there. And, when I look at these young men and women now, I'm like, holy shit, man. They are definitely smarter than us. But again, when I talk about the two of us, that's not hard. Right?
Yeah.
But, I think writ large, they're extremely intelligent. They're driven. You can teach physical skills and you can build physical hardness. But I think that same resiliency and spirit for service is just as strong with those same people, right? Like, Mattis isn't going to grow up 10 years from now, no matter where he lives in this country, and just be like, Dad, you know what? I think this place sucks. I want to move to, Russia or wherever. And that's it, right? Like, he's still going to be a patriot. He's still going to have a sense of service no matter what he does, right?
He told my wife the other day he was going to join the Marine Corps like Dad, and she's like, "No, the hell you're not."
Tell him to go Army, man. They'd say way better,
like,
right?
Yeah, I was like,
nothing hurt me more than my baby brother, wanting to join. And at first he's like, man, I think I want to go do this or that in the Marine Corps. And I was like, bro, there's this 18 X-ray program you should really look at. And he did it, thank goodness.
Good for him.
Yeah, he just got assigned over at the schoolhouse in North Carolina. And
contracting opened my eyes to the other experiences that were out there.
Yeah.
And made me realize that I made that decision based off of ignorance. And I just knew like the Marine Corps is the hardest one. That's the one my uncle was in. And so Marine Sniper is what I'm going to do. And that was from day one. That was my goal. That was my mission. I had no concept of like, how are you going to be employed as a sniper? What is the mission for, what is the budget?
Bro, when you're 18,
you don't care about those things.
You don't care what's past like the girl at the karaoke thing, on Friday, right? So
totally. But to meet all these Rangers, these SF guys, these Navy SEALs, these PJs, I was attached to a PJ unit as the liaison for our agency mobile team for a couple years. And those guys, I mean, they had a bottomless budget. Mm-hmm. Any training that they wanted, any equipment that they wanted. I remember at Bagram, they ordered 2 or 3 Segways. Those little leaning bike things.
Oh, yeah.
Just because they were on the list of options to see if they would get them. 3 weeks later, they're rolling around the airfield on these Segways, just having a good old time. Like, these motherfuckers.
Now, did they have to wear a helmet, though, and glasses?
Probably. I don't know. But
well, then it's not really that cool. You still wearing a glow belt, right? So, no, I'm kidding. Jealousy, right? Ugh.
Dude, yeah.
But, again, though, I read a book, the Carlos Hathcock book, when I was 12, right? Mm-hmm. And I told my mom, like, I'd always said I was going to grow up and be like G.I. Joe, that was that kid. My dad was in the Army. I had like my 782 gear, the stick camo, I'd steal a lighter from my parents and I'd like heat it up and burn my face. And, I had green shit all over my face probably from 7 until I was like 13. But I read that book and I was like, man, this is the coolest shit ever, right? Mm-hmm. Of course, knowing I would never be crawling around in the jungle by myself to kill a general, a little disappointing, right? But I still had a blast, right? And I'd never trade it, right? I am glad I got to go to the path I went, because envy is real easy to creep in, right? Like I do look at my brother and I'm like, damn, that's pretty cool, but like he didn't get to wear dress blues with white pants. You know what I'm saying, dog? I mean, that's That's how I got my second wife, right? I'm joking. But yeah, man. Back to your question, I don't think it's changed much, man.
Okay.
I do worry when I see some of the bigger political kind of things creeping in. Like what I did love about the Marine Corps when I joined is nobody cared what your religion was. Nobody cared what color you were. I truly believed and still do believe that the military is like the last meritocracy in our society.
Absolutely.
You could be a poor kid from the ghettos of Puerto Rico, or you could be a kid that graduated from Dartmouth and you enlist. And I'll tell you what, man, nobody gives a shit unless you can move that pack, shoot that gun, and find your way to where you're going and make the radio talk. And I think as long as we keep that, the main thing, which is that shoot, move, communicate, service to each other, right, more than yourself, I think we're all right. But it does scare me when, I see like emails with footers like his, him, or what, to each their own. But like, I think the military truly has to be this like politically agnostic thing, right? Like we serve the Constitution. We don't serve a party or the people we like. We serve everyone.
Yeah.
We actually serve the people we don't like or agree with more.
Absolutely.
Because that's the pure essence of that document. We say we're going to support and defend, right? And I think that's vitally important. But you do see it kind of creeping in. All the stuff,
distraction.
And again, I think what you do on your own time is that's your own business. But when you put the suit on, man, we're all green. We're all green. Maybe a different shade, but we're all green. And paydays every day, bro. You got to pay up. And nobody gives a shit who you vote for. I don't care who you sleep with. But you better do your damn job, right? And I think as long as we keep that protected, that element, and I think it is a struggle right now in the services, we'll be all right. But we'll see how it goes here in a couple more years, right? But yeah, that's.
So what do you think happened with the snipers? Tell me about that whole thing, because that blew up, and I remember like, what the fuck? A lot of guys were mad, a lot of guys, and your perspective was like, brothers, we earned it. And or maybe that's not what you. I don't want to put words in your mouth.
I mean, I more or less, look, man, I'm like, patient zero to some of those guys for what caused that infection, right? Like, oh man, like Skinta killed the sniper program. I mean, I've got a kid who's practically a nephew. He's in a sniper platoon out on the West Coast, and he's like, Uncle Mick, man, like. All my buddies are telling me you killed the sniper program, and I'm like, well, I wish I was that powerful, dude, but no.
What happened?
The writing was on the wall. We weren't performing well, and some people will argue, well, we weren't performing well because they didn't empower us with the right things, and my counter argument was like, man, I was in like 6 different platoons, and I like to think they were all pretty solid. I mean. I know you knew my platoon's rep over there, and dude, we moved into an area and like the vegetation died, right? I mean, it was pretty damn gangster, We just had some awesome dudes, man. I mean, I think you worked with some of them at the next place, like Jeff and all those guys, I mean, just they were fucking hammers, man.
Yeah.
So that was kind of never an excuse that I would accept, right? But the community was asked. And when general officers ask you to do something, that's like a polite civil way of saying, I'm ordering you to do this, right? Sure. And when we were asked to make some changes, and it was myself, AJ Paschuti, and my man, Matt Castelny, 2 of my best friends in life. And we're all gunners, right? Which means the Marine Corps really fucked up to let the 3 of us not only get that position, but like be together on like such a critical thing. And we walked into the lead schoolhouse, and we were like, look, guys, all we really got to do is like cut 7 days. Like, and if we got to cut 7 days and
from 7, what does that mean? From the training?
yeah, from
schedule?
the training, they said make it shorter, and we were like, okay, we'll give the perception of shorter.
Sniper school's shorter.
Yeah, so 7 days looks like 2 working weeks in the military.
Right. So 9 weeks instead of 11.
So 9 instead of 11.
Yeah.
In my opinion, that's a pretty easy. Cut your hand off to save the body, right?
Yeah. Stop doing field sketches. We have cameras.
Yeah, or who gives a fuck about a Kim's game? I'm just being honest, man. Like,
sure.
It's great, but
It's
like,
fluff.
do we got to do 15 of them, man?
Yeah,
Or,
it's fluff.
or maybe teach the kids how to shoot, right? Instead of evaluate them, and maybe insert some modern teaching modalities and approaches, right? Like, it's not 1978 anymore, right? Like, let's maybe, this is crazy, but I mean, have you ever owned a car more than 5 years?
I can't.
Most people
Yeah,
don't.
no.
Most people get a new vehicle about every 3.5 years, right? So why the fuck would we do something the same way for like 50 years, right? Like, look, man, I don't even like people that are married that long, because I think there's something wrong with both of them, right? It's like, you're just dishonest people, right? No one can like someone for 50 years, man. But I'm kidding. And I only say that because I won't live 50 more years for my newest wife, right? I get out of jail on that one.
Yeah.
But, they kind of said, we're not going to do it. And I was like, okay, well, I'm going to kind of take my football and I'm going to go home and I'm going to make my own shit. Cause I'm like the regimental gunner at SOI. So we can make our own shit.
Yeah.
And, again, Master Guns Passive Man, the guy I talked to you about, he just a relentless individual. He compiled a working group, which included the Scout Sniper instructors at the basic course, or Scout Sniper course. Sorry, it's not basic. I know that offends people. And again, if we're that worried about the name of our school, we got bigger fucking problems, right? But Sam Lynch, he was in that 2-2 platoon with me. I don't know if you remember, he had the big nose.
Yeah.
But super capable dude, right?
Yeah,
if you can
yeah.
get past that, right? I love him. I'm actually going to be his retiring officer coming up here in March.
That's cool.
But they brought him over, a bunch of other very, very like reputable snipers. Frank Simmons, who, did that work over in Afghanistan, swacking all those dudes in one day, right? Like, we get all this talent together, and then we start talking to people like Kalen Wojcik and Phil Vallejo, who are out in the civilian world getting guys who are 300 pounds, not all of them, but or a mechanical engineer to shoot way better than all of us in 5 days. And we're shooting for 3 fucking weeks, man. And a dude can't hit a 20 by 40, at 600 yards consistently.
Yeah.
And so we went out to these guys and we would run our ideas of how we wanted to do this like more mentor-mentee approach, a more kind of Socratic method of teaching, right? Which is what higher institutions of learning do, right? The good ones.
Yeah.
And so we inserted this, and they put together a staff of just absolute pipe hitters. Luke Morrow, who won the Hathcock Award, right, for contributions to marksmanship, right? And then the very next year, Caleb Neff wins it again. Scout Sniper Instructor of the Year. They take third at the International Sniper Comp. And we hadn't placed there since Phil Vallejo like 10 years ago, right? So clearly, not to say the other method was wrong, but this was better, right?
Yeah.
And now we've got kind of like the hard evidence, right? Like, if this new RSC course is third at the International Sniper Comp and Quantico's like 28th, I don't know, man. Maybe we are not that wrong, right? But unfortunately, we get into this you and I kind of thing, right? And that's kind of, I don't know if I got totally to answer your question, but RSC is still here. The Recon Sniper course is still here. And the regular course, I mean, they're still running them. How much longer? I don't know.
So they haven't completely canceled and eliminated the job of...
Most battalions have transitioned to a scout platoon. Who
is
will
that
have
a different MOS? Is 0317
It's still going to
gone?
be 0311. 0317 will die once the school's done, I believe. That's how it was. Like, again, I've been out a year, but I still, with the new job, interact with folks pretty regularly. You know, I think here's what I think will happen. It will go away. I think under the new commandant coming in, it will stay away until he's gone. Because you got to stick to your guns. But I think anyone who studies history knows the program's gone away many times throughout history. But what it does is it always comes back better. And what I'm hoping is, you know, with the lessons we've learned in GWAT and the lessons we've learned in all these other places, you know, and as RSC and some of these other schools continue to evolve, right? Because everyone else is making their stuff better. When we finally do get to come back, that's what we do. And we don't do that dangerous Marine thing of like pride and love of history and go right back to the way that we were doing it before, right? You know, I always tell everybody, like, you know, I was a really good shot, right? And I went to urban sniper school and I didn't know how to zero my gun. I was a graduate, bro. And it's because when I went through, you know, you had the old UNERTL and the instructors would like focus on adjusted parallax and do that. And I mean, some guys got it, but you know, I'm one of those dudes that's, you know, a little slow with mechanical shit. So, I mean, I think I had to watch that like probably 20 times before I knew how to do it. But you know, I could do a fuck ton of push-ups. I could flutter kick until the cows came home. I mean, I wasn't even allowed to run. We had an instructor. I love him. I love him to death, but he'd make us run a lap around Stone Bay every time he taught a class. Well, my partner got cut in a corner, and I was an NCO and he wasn't. So I had to bear crawl everywhere we went for like a week, right? Like range, whatever. I mean, and I'll tell you, man, I could bear crawl better than fucking anybody, but I've never had to bear crawl in combat, right? And so we kind of that school was more, in my opinion, of an evaluation than instruction. I was really blessed. My primary instructor was this absolute gangster by the name of Joel Ortega, right? And just a fucking badass dude, right? Cool as the underside of the pillow. And he, you know, after we'd all get fucked up by everyone else, he would actually pull his teams aside and like teach us how to do it, right?
Yeah.
And you know, we shouldn't build an environment or have an environment where the dude's got to pull you aside to actually teach you. Mm-hmm. We should teach you, right? Folks will disagree with me, but the course is hard enough, right? You're running everywhere you go in a forward motion. Oh, yeah. You got 50 to 60 to 90 pounds on your back at all times. You got a 20-pound gun. Trust me, man. The dudes are getting it, right? Do I need to fuck you up just so I can feel better about it? And I'm a hypocrite, right? Because when I was a sniper instructor, you know, and I'll get that out there, Zach, all right? Like, I mean, you knew me.
You go get called out if you don't.
No, yeah. So, okay, one, to the folks at home, like, I'll own my shit. I was damn near one step away from Satan on earth, right? I mean, I was actually at dinner with a prior student last night. We're celebrating his birthday, and he was like, yeah, Mick was so fucked up, you know? Like, I mean, and I just did dumb shit, right? Like, I'd make you write definitions with alternating colors every letter 1,000 times, right? Just so you couldn't sleep for a day, right? And I think I'm out now, so I don't have to worry about an NJP on that. But, you know.
We got creative.
You know, yeah, man. I mean, you know, and I was a really healthy human back then, right? Like, I ate like a half a pound of poke a day, some ramen noodles, and drank like a half a fucking fifth of Jack Daniels every night, right? But, you know, I ran 10 miles a day and did thousands of squats with my ruck. You know, that's all I cared about. And but again, that's not right? Like, and it's very difficult to get to the point where it's like, man, just because it happened to me or I did it to them doesn't mean we can't change the way we do it, right? And as the regimental gunner at SOI, I was like, fuck, man. I mean, you know, looking at the master guns, like, and we both went to sniper school at the exact same time, right? And I was like, man, do you think this will work? You know, and not only did it work, but we started on the West Coast, we put those teaching modalities into the regular sniper course as well. And what we saw was our marksmanship scores went up, our drop rate went down, and the guys were going to follow on schools and stacking up hardware, man. And again, it's like, you know, treated you like a man, right? I think that's like the hardest thing for a Marine to get to. Yeah. Especially Marines is like, yeah, dude, that guy's a private or he's a corporal and maybe you're a sergeant major. At the end of the day, you're not better than that dude.
Mm-hmm.
You're just fucking older.
Yeah.
Like, we're literally defaulting to the mindset of our enemies, right? Like, I mean, who's in charge in Afghanistan? The fucking oldest dude. He can be a damn window licker, but because he made it to 90, probably because he never had to do anything, he's now all of a sudden like the boss, right? And we kind of default to that in the military, right? It's like, well, you're just older than me, man. Like,
You just didn't leave.
yeah, you
Didn't make you a good leader.
Yeah. Well, I like to think that we do a halfway decent job. Again, like I said, I've had some great commanders. I've had some awesome sergeants majors. I was really kind of lucky, man. Because again, I look at like you guys and I was like, holy fuck, man. If I was those guys, I wouldn't plan on making it back to the States, right? Like, I mean, we really felt bad for the dudes.
So I think he had already left whenever we did that mission with you, but I had a CO on that deployment that we worked together, and he ended up getting relieved halfway through. Absolute shit show. And I remember a mission that he tasked me out with that I thought he was joking. And I guess they had some Marines falling asleep on post, get caught, which happens, And so he came to me and he pulled me into his office and he said, I would like you to take your team out and try to sneak back in. Yeah. He's like, I want you to try to sneak in to every single post that we have up there and see how close you can get to those Marines, because I don't think that they're doing their jobs. I'm like, are you fucking high? Are you trying to get me shot? Like, if they're not doing their jobs, cool. If they are, you want me to... And he's like, you will do this or you will be a saw gunner in a squad. And I'm like, what the fuck? Which is, lose everything that I had worked for.
Yeah.
And I remember I went over to the XO, and thank God for him, Cameron McCoy. Awesome.
I know Cameron. I served with him in 4th Recon. He was a
awesome human.
Company commander. Yeah. He just became a doctor. Like, well, PhD.
I am not surprised by that at all.
Yeah. I think he just got accepted like the War College or something as a full. Just an impressive human being, man.
Wonderful person.
Physical specimen.
Oh, yeah.
Brilliant.
He was like cornerback for
played ball
in
like
college.
I call him the TFG, that fucking guy, right? Like, he's good looking, he's intelligent,
he is.
Shit looks easy, great family.
He's on another level.
But you know what, man? One of the most humble dudes I ever met, man. And again, I think that had a lot to do with his boss, right? Like, again, you got a colonel who's, Alan Jasser, who's like 6'7", again, got the great family, successful, the level of humility, right? Like, just speaking through your actions and your care for your men, guys like that. I mean, they're few and far between, but yeah, Cameron, definitely one of them. And
I was so grateful for him, because I went to him and I'm like, sir, what the fuck? And he kind of has a soft spot. Yeah, well, And so I organized a thing with him to go to each post. I had a PRR to call Lieutenant McCoy and be like, hey, man, we're going to come up to post 1. And he's like, roger that. And so he would go to the post and make the Marines stand down so that I could fulfill this mission. I think the guy was just bored. I don't even know what the hell he was doing. But
I remember you guys telling us when we were,
man,
when we were kind of like swapping the way we all did business. I mean, you remember my team? We were just like, holy shit, bro. Like,
I was immediately aware of how bad we had it. That the whole Marine Corps wasn't that way, which was a relief. I'm like, these guys, man, I'm just like, why did I get sent here?
Man, we got treated like rock stars.
That's awesome. I'm glad to hear that.
Rock star status, man.
I'm glad to hear that. So this CO, he was prior enlisted. He had a Recon Jack tattoo. Come to find out, I think he was like a supply attachment sort of a situation. He didn't go through BDC or BRC.
I think, Mustangs are interesting, right?
Mm-hmm.
Just like they are in,
they don't.
Just like they are in nature, right?
Yeah.
You got good ones and bad ones, man.
Sure.
And
sure.
I think the difference is there's no middle ground with them.
Yeah.
They're either absolute hammers or total
redheads.
Fuck sticks, man.
Redheads.
Yeah.
They're on the binary scale.
Yeah.
They're either ones and she's gorgeous, or
watch yourself. I got it. You know, my oldest is a ginger Zach. You know,
I'm sorry.
she'll be local here soon, so I'm gonna need to know where your whereabouts. I'm kidding. But.
Oh man, but yeah. Anyway, I mean, back to what we were going over was. So you feel that we kind of earned it. We didn't adjust course.
We didn't adjust, right?
Yeah.
It's it's unfortunate, right? Like there's only so many places we can really evaluate people, right? And one of those main events is like MWX, ITX, CAX when you were in, or Mojave Viper.
Oh yeah.
And again, it's not just sniper centric, right? Like how many company commanders have you seen fired at 29 Palms or platoon commanders, right? That's where you get evaluated. And we had a track record there for a while and we just didn't perform collectively. And I think some of that was what I call GWAT-isms, right? Like we could shoot lights out. Like everybody got into shooting, right? Cause that's what you did. And honestly, it's the fun part, right? Yeah. It's the fun part, but it's like the 1% part, right? Like, I can't tell people how many, when guys are like, man, I want to be a sniper. I'm like, bro, I can't tell you how many hours of my life were spent on the side of the road in some shithole position.
Getting out of shape.
That resulted in nothing but me watching the road.
Yeah.
But that's part of the job, right? And that's what you accept. But I think we lost our way in like our mission planning, like it used to be you met a sergeant that was a sniper and that guy could brief like a fucking captain, if not sometimes better.
Yep.
Our call for fire, our supporting arms were just second to none. And then you got guys that couldn't even like call in a grid mission, and that's really what it came down to. Like we were becoming detrimental, right? And from an enterprise perspective, and again, guys are like, well, then you should have fucking trained them. Well, homie, I get it. We can always say that. But it's also on the individual, right? It's on the individual and it's on the collective to have the overarching mindset and viewpoint of, okay, man, we're not getting this here, then we need to do this here. But every time I saw platoons, they were just shooting guns, right? Because it's fun, man. It's fun. And you could, it's real. It's tactile. You can talk. You and I are shooting next to each other, and I hit and you miss. I can talk shit, right?
Yeah.
Same
it's
way.
An immediate right or wrong.
And it's 2 seconds.
I hit it or I missed it. Yeah.
It's a total of 2 seconds. We both shoot, and we're already talking shit, right? Whereas, learning how to, control supporting arms or for the love of God, writing a mission, right? Or practicing briefing a mission. And that shit ain't fun, dude.
No,
it ain't
scary.
That's not cool.
Mm-hmm.
It's boring, right? That's like all this, that's like bell-fed shit. No, man, that's how you get work.
Being a lance corporal trying to brief a colonel and a major and all these captains was intimidating as hell.
Yeah, man. And I'll give you some kudos. I remember we were around that little sand table, and I really felt like they fucked you because I went first and briefed, and dude, you knocked it out of the park. I was like, holy shit, man. But that's what we used to make, right? We made this guy, no matter what rank he was, we gave him this like kind of instilled level of bravado, kind of. Not sure. I don't like that arrogance term, but like you were definitely confident, right? When you got out of there and you were good at those things. And through the years, just because we turned into like a shooting club, I mean, really it was like walk to spot. I mean, let's face it, hunting those guys is easier than hunting in Texas, right?
Sure.
I mean, like I tell everybody, I got a tree stand in my backyard that goes off twice a day, right? I've got axis, whitetail. I shoot them from my pool deck if I wanted to, right? So it's more selection. And I really think like if you weren't dumb and you were like, all right, well, they only do shit during high lunar cycles. They always do shit at the same spot because we always go to the same spot. I'm just going to go camp my ass off right here, and I'm going to play Schwack-a-mole and go back and get my ice cream, right?
Yeah.
Mint chocolate chip time. But that's what we kind of fell into, and and we got a lot of praise and success for it, right? Like, platoons weren't like respected from outside of the community unless they had like some pretty significant body counts, right? And nobody said like, oh, man, Yeah, they killed a lot of people, but man, you should have heard Zach Ben fucking brief his order, right? Like those things are never said by anyone, right?
Yeah.
You know, what's your medal you get at the end of the deployment, right? It doesn't say like, and he was really briefed well, right? Like, no, it just says this dude schwacked these fools, and like he was dope, right? And it's the easy button, and I think we looked over the stuff that mattered. And again, I think we also didn't progress, right? Like when you have these guys who were you know, still are, right? Once you are, you always are. Unless you become a warrant officer, then they take the MOS away. So I guess I'm not anymore.
Oh, really?
Yeah, man. But you are, you know, you got to leave with it, right? So, yeah, like my wife cut my hog's tooth off, man. She's like, you don't raid anymore. I'm joking. I'm joking. But yeah, but you know, when you look at these guys who were snipers on active duty, and they go out and they continue to grow, right? Again, like Kalen and Phil, you know, I'll keep going back to them.
Modern day sniper.
Yeah,
if you're not following
the Lilies
Phil,
of the world, like all these guys. Yeah, modern day sniper, man. If I will give the plug, right?
Yeah, man, do it.
If you're not watching them, especially, you know, if you're a military sniper or anybody that's like interested in improving themselves just holistically as a precision marksman or just want a very self-fulfilling mental journey, I think marksmanship's a great avenue for that, especially at that level. And those guys are like your Obi-Wan fucking Kenobis, right? Like Cody Carroll, you know, like these guys, like it's not a job to them, right? It's an existence, right? And it carries over into their whole being. And I think it's a beautiful thing. But like when we're not looking at those dudes who are like, I mean, that's their energy level, right? Like their energy level is based off of like that whole concept that feeds into everything else, right? The precisions that's required, the meticulous attention to detail, then we're fucking wrong, dude. And if we're still teaching, you know, put your heels flat and you can only shoot this way. Well, no, man. Like, there's a lot of ways to shoot, right? I mean, I think the only thing that really matters is like this little part, you know, like everything else. I mean, you'd be upside down wearing a banana hammock, you know, and eating a donut as long as you just pull it right. But I think we lost our way with that. And I hope, like I said, when we come back better, and we come back willing to teach and inform and mentor, not just inflict and evaluate, right?
I agree, man. I had the privilege of attending the Marine Sniper School, the State Department, and a 3-letter. And then I went out to the FTW Ranch, which is where I met Phil. And I attended my interview was to attend a 4-day precision class as a student, and they could evaluate me and I could evaluate them. Mm-hmm. And what they're able to do in 4 days was more than we could do in the 6-week shooting package of sniper school. And I felt just so sorry for the guys that had gone through that, because the technology is so far above what we had. Those inertial scopes, we've now got Collis 5x25s like that are phenomenal. Trimmer 3 reticles. You know, we've got all of these things and all of this weaponized math at our fingertips, but it takes the Corps so long to adopt those things.
Well, I think you know, again, it comes back to like, if it doesn't have the appearance of hard, then we can't justify our existence, right? And it's like, well, bro, just because that part's not hard it doesn't mean it's still not hard, right?
Right. I get these ladies and these 12-year-old kids that come in, and in 4 days, I got a picture of a 12-year-old holding a Ruger RPR and a target at 1,200 yards that he shot multiple times. And he's 12. The gun was bigger than he is. And it's because it doesn't have to be hard.
No, it doesn't.
And there's simple, you know, Todd Hotnett has contributed a lot to our understanding of using the ruler reticle, all the different ways to apply that and to shoot it. And Phil came out to the ranch, and I got to work with him, and he is 100% in line with his purpose. And you see it in his movements, you see it in his commitment to the skill set. And
That's what I'm talking about, man, that journey, right?
dude,
Like,
he has grown, and he'll tell you, he's like, I'm way better than I ever was in the Marine Corps. When he got out, he did his first competition. He's like, bro, I didn't rank in the first 3 digits. Like, and then he's climbed that ladder by exposing himself to the civilian market where easy and efficient is what gets rewarded.
Yeah.
What's the most efficient, best way to do this job for me to achieve it and have success? That's what we're chasing, not the Marine Corps' kind of, well, we just want to make sure when you get there it sucked.
well,
we got to instill this trauma bond.
I'll say even the old way made, I think, the best fundamentally sound scout sniper, right? Again, you gotta progress, right? And I used to always tell everybody it's kind of like a caveman in the big city, right? Like, cool, man, you got your club and you're hard, but like you don't even know how to use the crosswalk, right? Like,
right.
And that's really what we were kind of becoming. We were like this archaic dude that was just like, and that's, it's just, it's got to change, and I think it will. I really do.
It has to, or it dies, right?
Well, I mean, yeah, that's really the only way it's going to happen anymore these days. But I look at the recon sniper course, and extremely proud to know that team and see what they committed to that effort. And we've got Rangers going to that course, we've got sister services going to that course again, right? And they kind of just stopped coming to us, and that says a lot, man. It says, there's a lot in like your brand, and I think our brand was diminishing, and everyone knows like this is a business, and in business sometimes you got to rebrand, right? And I think this is a great start and a great reference point for us to go from, and I hope when the Scout Sniper course comes back, it supersedes in RSC, and it makes them have to change, right? Yeah. Because that's what we, should constantly be doing, especially in a game that the ultimate tournament is warfare, right? Like
life and death.
We owe it to each other, and we owe it to the next guy coming in to evolve and not just make it harder, right? It's easy to make shit harder. It's not easy to make it better.
Yeah.
And sometimes I think we really confuse harder with better, and that's definitely not always the case, right?
Oh, not at all. Not at all. I mean, when I started going out there and saw that the tier 1 snipers were coming to that ranch to train, to learn those methods that we're teaching civilians, as well as the ranch. Like it's 12,000 acres with 36.
Oh yeah, man! I took my boys out there.
You've been there?
Yeah, I took 15 guys out there.
When?
Oh shit. 2013, I think, or 14. And I love the Fallon family. Tim's a patriot. He's
sure.
I mean, you want to talk about an American, man? Yeah, that dude is through and through just one of the best Americans you'll ever meet, right? We're almost like a sponsor show right now. We give a lot of plugs, but no, but I will shamelessly plug Tim Fallon and FTW. They great training environment, right? Turnkey. We had Matt Spiker come out with Pale Horse.
Okay.
And that's what my guys did, right?
Yeah.
And it was humbling for some of them.
For sure.
But everyone got better, right? And again, that's the key, right? In all of them, after 4 days, five training days, they were like, dude, this is the best shit I've ever done in my life, right? And then, we kind of took that, and then we got too big, right? Then we brought the whole division worth of snipers out to a place called 9 Mile in West Texas. Then we had Dutch SF and Texas Ranger SWAT and all these dudes. And
wow.
It was just great to see, everyone getting together, working together, FBI agents, DEA, and a Lance Corporal in the Marine Corps, right? And some of the sergeants who were like, oh, fuck, maybe we are doing this wrong. Like,
yeah.
Because look at this dude, and he's shooting lights out, and he can still get where he needs to go.
Yeah.
Maybe I need to think shit different, think things over and do things a little differently. And, but again, you're lucky you've been exposed to a lot of different training environments, modalities. I've been very fortunate, I mean.
You see that it's not the only way.
It's not, and again, talking about anniversaries, right? My very dear friend, Buford Boone, he used to work at the FBI. He was an FBI agent, special agent, and can't call him Mister. That's his dad. he posted a picture, and it was like 20 years ago was when I went through FBI sniper school, right? And I remember this guy talking about this crazy like touch press on a bolt gun, right? Like to shoot faster. And I was like, oh no, you can't do that. I was told like slow, steady pull to the rear, man.
Yeah.
And I'm this like super experienced guy because I've been in the military for 5 years, right? At that point, I knew everything. And I'll never forget, like he just was like line it up or whatever. And like he like slammed it back to the rear. And of course, where do you think the bullet went? Like dead center of the target. And it's like those mind opening things. And you're like, fuck, man, there's more out there than meets the eye. Right. And it, I was fortunate that happened because it inspired me to like become a learner of like truly try to keep like learning in the craft. Right. And I think a lot of guys that don't get to see stuff like that, they just accept
this is
the
it.
reality. This is it. Right. And again, when you get to see how other people do it, other agencies, other branches of the military, you're like, fuck, man, maybe we don't have the keys to the kingdom anymore. Right. And there's nothing wrong with that. But I think what we did is we allowed our pride to get in the way and say, well, fuck that. We're holding what we got. Right. And, again, I think it's a self-correcting issue.
It is. It is. You either keep up or get left behind.
Yeah.
It's been a great thing for me because I remember when I got out, you called me like, hey, man, do you want to come to Hawaii?
Yeah.
And saying no to that was one of the hardest decisions that I've ever made. And it's bothered me ever since.
Well, it bothered me too because I ended up getting Nate coffee instead. No, I'm joking. The preacher man's a hell of an American.
He's a great person.
He's a hell of an American. I've never met someone that loved God and loved killing as much as
I
Nate.
know, right?
Just the complete duality of man. He was actually my religious representation at my retirement.
Oh, wow.
Nate flew all the way out.
That's awesome.
And prayed only the way Nate can, talking about killing Muslims and still making it like about baby Jesus. Like it was pretty, and everybody was like, man, he's the absolute best. I was like, well, no shit. That's why I had him come out here and do this, right? But, Nate's, he looks like something out of a Campbell Soup commercial, right? Like blonde hair, blue eyed. He's got the perfect family and, he will drop you faster than you can snap your fingers, man.
For sure.
But I think it worked out well for everybody, right? Like you got to go do
it needed
next journey and
yeah.
Nate got to get that piece and it was, I think he was good for us.
Yeah.
Because all of us needed a little bit of Jesus at that point in our lives, It was really good, man. And yeah.
I'd love to hear, how you've managed this civilian transition. I know you said you kind of jumped right into a job. I think if you can do that, that is the absolute best way.
But that doesn't make it easy, right? Like it's
sure.
Like, you wake up for 27 years at 5:30 in the fucking morning.
Yeah.
You go do the grind and you do your thing. But I think for me, like, everybody's different. I think for me, what's been beneficial is like I've been able to focus on my kids, focus on my family, spend quality time with brothers, and kind of like shrink the circle of like all the people that were kind of on the edges and like not to be rude, but kind of weighing them, like what do you bring to the table? Not that you ever need something from someone or they have to, but like, are you bringing me a positive thing or are you a negative, right? And
I say fuel the engines and cut the anchors 100%, is usually how I describe that. And sometimes those anchors can be lifelong friends. They can be some of them are, family.
Man. And I've done it, and and it sucks, right?
It sucks so bad.
I love that dude, right?
It sucks so bad.
Or person, but I think I kind of just went fucking like scorched earth, right? And I struggled with it for a couple months, man. No doubt. Like it was rough, but I also think I was fortunate that like I work with my two roommates from infantry weapons officer course, right? And like we used to joke, whoever gets out first is gonna get the other two a job, right? And no shit. But here we all are. So like when I go to, I tell everyone, man, I've been out, for a little over a year. I've been working at Saab for a little over a year. And, one, the company is just great, right? The mentality, the environment. Like, I'm like, fuck, if I could add this in the Marine Corps, I would have stayed for like till I was dead, right?
Sure.
But going to work with like your buddies, right? I still kind of get it. I get that fix, right? Like I go to bases, I take these out to dinner, they're using our equipment. I believe in it. You know, we've got a pretty dope system that kills a bunch of tanks, right? Like, it's just fucking cool, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I travel around Texas with like a fake, you know, inert Carl Gustav. Like, that's rad, right? So it's not even like working, right? Like, I tell everybody, I've been at Saab for a year, but I haven't worked a day yet, right?
Yeah.
Like, because it's like a fucking frat party. I mean, with serious business, but like, it's just enjoyable, right? Like, none of us are sitting there trying to like send that last email out with the timestamp of like 8:30, right?
Yeah.
It's like, if I did that with my boss now, he would like probably call me and be like, dude, what the fuck is wrong with you? He'd say mate though, because he's British, but
yeah, I think if you've got to have a tribe, you've got to maintain that tribe, and when you get out, it's like you grieve it. It's your identity, your culture, your family. You lose it all in one day, and you're just sent home, right back where you were. Like, for me, it was like a dream.
I don't think you lose anything. I think the weight gets dispersed differently, right? Like, now the family's weighted more than the job, right? And like, for some of us, that's uncomfortable, right? I'm not gonna lie, I'm one of them, right? Like, when I look at my youngest, you know, I mean, I was gone pretty much up until she was 7, right?
Yeah.
And so, like, to work on that relationship and develop it in a different way, right? Not try to make up for lost time, but make the time count, right? And, you know, I tell everybody, like, the coolest fucking thing I've got to do this year, and it kills me to say it, was take my daughter to UT, right? I mean, she's been doing the hook'ems and saying she was going to go there since she was 4, you know, and here we are, and it's becoming a reality, hopefully. And that's just as special to me as like any mission I ever got to do.
Yeah.
It's just the way you weight it, right? And I think that's what's important for us, at least from my opinion. And, you know, and I think where it goes wrong is when guys isolate, right? Like, because when they isolate, they don't just like isolate from us, like their brothers, but they isolate from everyone. Like, when you hear about guys that where it goes wrong, right? Usually when we all peel it back, it's like, well, fuck, man, he wasn't even talking to his family anymore, you know? And I think we're men of extreme measures, right? And some of us don't understand, like, dude, there's a middle ground, right? Because we've never done that before. And I think finding that is like where you kind of get that inner peace, right? And that's, you know, I don't want to sound like some cliche meme, right? But like, I always tell my wife, like, you know, like, I'm doing me, man. I'm like living my best life, you know, like that whole hashtag. And I think that's what we got to do, man. It's like, you finally get a chance, and it's scary, right? But to like really self-assess yourself as like a human. And I'll tell you, man, I was a horrible fucking friend, man. I was fucking horrible. I still am, right? Like, I'm the guy, you know, I can't even remember. I'll be like, I'm going to call this dude today, right? And then I won't. And then, like, you'll text me or something out of the blue, and then we'll text for like an hour, right? Like, but then you don't do it again for like 6 months, right?
Yeah.
And I think, you know, like I said, man, I was not a model dad. I was not a model husband. I was not a model friend. I was really, I think, above average Marine and sniper. But at the end of the day, like, none of that shit goes on your headstone, right? And the Marine Corps is not going to be standing there when the headstone gets put in the dirt. It's
crying.
It's all those other fucking people that you were not very good to. So I think for me, it's not making up for that. It's living with it now in the best way possible. And I think that's kind of been like my key to, like, I think, having thus far a successful transition, right? And I've fucking enjoyed it, man. You know, like. Good. You know, people are like, "Oh, do you miss it?" And I'm you know, I tell everybody, man, I miss the absolute fuck out of the monkeys, but I don't want to pay the admission to the zoo anymore. You know, and life's awesome, right? I mean, it's dope. You know, I mean, you got Mattis. You know, I love the homeschool session you put up the other day, right? Like, we get to do that shit now, and I think that should mean just as much to us that the other stuff did. And I think if we can't get there, then we need to find a way to get there. And that's like self-evaluation and progress, man. You know, not to get all hippie on you, but
no, I agree. I agree 1,000%. And it's been a journey for me to come to that realization. I mean, a lot of that came to me in Naked and Afraid. Leaving him
which
day.
Now I do have proof to my children eventually that I know you, right?
Yeah. I had just got home from Kabul, and I was leaving for Colombia to do that. I had maybe a month home. He was 3.5. My bags were packed by the door. Uber was in the driveway. And he came stumbling into the living room in the morning with his little elephant lovey in his hands. And he crawled into my lap and he gave me this arm and leg koala bear hug. And he whispered into my ear, damn it. Daddy, thank you for coming to visit me.
Oh,
And it broke my fucking heart.
yeah, man.
But I was committed. I was headed to Colombia, right? And so I carried that into the jungle, and I, 17 nights alone in the dark for 12 hours staring at a fire.
Yeah.
I was done with it. And luckily, when I got out, we had left Afghanistan, and the job had dissolved with that. And so it's been a journey of reprioritizing my life. And recently, with the start of this podcast, Stay Zero, I didn't totally know what that meant for me. I knew what that meant for the company, but I didn't have personal meaning for it yet. And I had an epiphany, I'll call it that, where those two were the most important things in my life and all that I cared about. And the other parts of my life, the jobs, the hobbies, the things that distract me, especially social media, was the big one for me, were just noise. It was just noise that was keeping me from the two things that I loved and I wanted to spend the most time with, and that upon my death were all that I cared about. And it showed me that I do have control over that volume knob. And I can keep that noise level at 0 and stay focused on the things that are most important to me so that I don't get to the end of my life and look back and beg for more time because I blew it all through the noise.
Yeah, man.
And that was the greatest gift that I've ever received in this journey of figuring myself out again, who I am after the core. But
It's a fucking hell of a ride.
Isn't it?
It is, man. But I'll tell you what, the only thing that would make it better is adding more gas, I mean, this thing is great. And I think that's, we never get to really enjoy life. I mean, you have enjoyable moments, but man, it's so, the colors pop, the smells are better, and the hugs mean more,
They do. They do. I'm glad you're here, man.
Yeah, man. Same, brother. Thanks for having me,
this.
man. Yeah.
Let's
anytime.
go eat.
Yeah.
Stay Zero.